Happy game day, Bengals fans. Welcome into our TriHealth pregame live stream. I'm Marissa Contepelli, joined by the man in the booth, Dave Lapham, who will be on the call today for Bengals versus Steelers as the Bengals look to bounce back here in week 3. Inactives for the Bengals this afternoon against Pittsburgh. The big name on there, wide receiver T. Higgins. He will not go this afternoon. Also, Fred Johnson on the offensive line and Xavier Su'a-Filo inactive. Cornerbacks Trey Waynes and Nick McLeod, and defensive tackle Tyler Shelvin, all inactive. T. Higgins, this is his first game that he's inactive for in his NFL career. Just, how much is that receiver room going to miss him this afternoon?
Yeah, they will definitely miss him. There's no question, Marissa. I mean, he's a great talent, but I think Auden Tate and wide receiver by committee hopefully will be able to pick up the slack. Plus, you may see multiple tight ends in this football game. I think the Cincinnati Bengals are going to try to run the football, and I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to try to run the football as well. I think it's a big key today who gets that running game going, and then who can do play action pass off that running game and take advantage with their wide receivers and tight ends.
On our screen now is Joe Burrow getting some warm-ups on the field at Heinz Field. And Lap, you mentioned that run game. Joe Mixon, second in the NFL in rushing, despite only having 69 yards on the ground against Chicago. In Pittsburgh, though, he's averaging over 6 yards a carry. You say they want to get the run game going, but how is that going to happen against the Steelers defense?
Well, I think, with guys that are out, Alu is out for the season with the broken ankle. TJ Watt isn't going to be available. Tuitt is on injured reserve. So I think that they've got guys that can play, but their rotation is going to be down. They won't be able to run as many players in there. So in my mind, I would tee off on them in the running game. I would do inside zone and then run the stretch play. I would make them feel Joe Mixon. I would make them tackle Joe Mixon and fatigue them because they don't have that many players to run out there when guys are starting to get a little bit winded, a little bit gassed. So I think that's going to be a big, big factor. I mean, just keep hammering at them, put them in the meat grinder, and see if they can get that running game going. I think it's going to be a big day for Joe. The last time Joe and Frank Pollock were here together at this stadium, Joe Mixon had 105 yards on just 12 carries. So hopefully something like that could happen again today.
That would certainly be a welcome sight. And you mentioned Frank Pollock. Rookie Jackson Carman is in line to get his first NFL start at right guard with Xavier Su'a-Filo being out. Just what are your expectations for Jackson in his first career start?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Cameron Hayward is the best defensive player that's left on the football field for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he is a beast. There's no question about it. I think he's one of the best, if not the best, interior defensive lineman in the National Football League. But watching tape, he usually plays over the left guard. He and Quentin Spain could be a very a matchup that would be fun to watch. A couple of Brahma Bulls going at each other in there on the inside a little bit. But they may say, got a rookie. We got to test that rookie a little bit. How about if we put Cameron Hayward over here on the right guard more so than the left guard? Pittsburgh usually doesn't do that. Pittsburgh usually runs their stuff and says, we're better than you, and here's what we're going to do, no secrets. But, because of all the injuries, it makes me wonder a little bit. But that's going to be a very, very interesting battle to watch. Jackson Carman inside as well. He's got all the tools, Marissa. Physically, he's extremely gifted. He's powerful. He's smart. He can athletic enough to get up to the second level and consume linebackers a little bit. So if he keeps his head, keeps his wits about him, I think it's going to be an interesting day to watch him perform a little bit.
It's nothing like saying welcome to the NFL to make your first career start against rival Pittsburgh, just for what their defense is known for, even though they are missing guys, as you mentioned, Lap. When it comes to the offensive line, I have to imagine they're going to be looking for a better performance in protecting Joe Burrow. He's taken too many hits through 2 weeks of the season. What needs to change for Burrow to be protected a little bit better?
Yeah, I think consistency in the running game, it can't be up and down. And like I said today, I think the running game is a big factor. If they can get the running game going and then use play action passing off of that running game, and Marissa, if they can get that ground attack underway, I think the mismatch is on Joe Schobert at linebacker, at inside linebacker. Bush is very athletic; he can run. But if you can get running backs or a tight end on Schobert, Joe Mixon on Schobert, watch out for Evans. Remember Evans in preseason beat the Miami Dolphin linebacker on the deep ball? Watch out for Evans matching up in this one because running back on linebacker and play action passing game could be a big factor in this football game. But it's just more consistency in terms of working as a unit coming off the line of scrimmage. And really, it's going to be a huge factor because you do want to wear that defense down. And I think Pittsburgh's going to try to run the ball as well. They have a quarterback with a left pectoral injury, and they've got an injured defense. What's the best way to help your defense? Keep them off the field. So they have not run one snap this year, Marissa, with a fullback in the game. One Watt is going to be out, TJ, but Derek Watt, his brother, who plays fullback for the Steelers, he could have an impact on this football game because I bet they're going to run two backs in the backfield at the same time for the first time today, and I bet they run it not exclusively, but I bet they mix it in there pretty well. Two backs, one tight end, two backs, two tight ends. They're going to try to put big pads on and play some muscle ball and help their defense a little bit.
Well, as we see Jamar Chase there on our screen going through pass catch drills, Chase has an opportunity to make history. He is just the first player since 1976 to record touchdown receptions of 40 or more yards in his first two NFL games. If he can get into the end zone today, he's just going to be one of 8 players to ever score in his first 3 career games. When you look at Pittsburgh's defense and their secondary lap, they're allowing over 300 passing yards a game, 29th in the NFL. Just how can Burrow and not only Chase but really Tyler Boyd to kind of exploit what's happening in that secondary?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Joe Hayden is a great player in the secondary, but if they can pass protect, Joe Hayden is very vulnerable to a double move. And that's what I was hoping was going to happen last week against Chicago. They were sitting on routes, sitting on short intermediate routes and breaking on them. And I'm like, oh, man, double move, hook and go, out and up. Let's double move them a little bit. Well, it didn't feel like the pass protection was holding up. But if it can, Hayden is vulnerable to that double move. But he is a great player. Sutton, the other cornerback, in my opinion, is a better inside player than outside player. But he has to play outside now because of salary cap moves that they made. And one of the biggest salary cap moves they made was not being able to afford Mike Hilton. Here he comes to Cincinnati. And Marissa, they've blitzed less than half the time on first and second down in the first 2 games this year as they did last year. I think a big part of that is they think TJ Watt and Hayward can get there without blitzing. And when they did blitz, they brought Mike Hilton off the slot corner blitz. He's very talented. They don't have him. Now today, without Watt, are they going to blitz more? But boy, last week against the Raiders, Carr hit a 61-yard touchdown pass because the slot corner got hung up in a bunch formation of receivers, didn't get to the quarterback. Hilton's so talented, figuring out a way to get there, a path to get there, and he's so quick. He always got there. They didn't get there, and he hit him for a 61-yard touchdown pass. So it's a different-looking secondary. And I think that if the Bengals can get their running game going and firm up their protection, I think Joe Burrow, even without T. Higgins out there, I think Tyler Boyd could have a big day. I think all of them can. I think all of them can hurt the Pittsburgh Steelers. Tyler Boyd working, with the short intermediate game, and number 1 Jamar Chase with the deep ball. I think it could be a good package today.
Okay, taking a look at Mike Hilton, he told us this week, Lap, he had this game circled on the calendar as soon as the schedule was released, his return to Pittsburgh. When you look at, this defense, how can they build on the first 2 weeks? They put pretty solid back-to-back performances against the Vikings and then the Bears. So how can they continue to not only get better, but really try to take advantage of opportunities when there on defense?
Yeah, I think it's again, the real good defensive football teams are truly professional in that on a week-to-week basis, it's like the coaching staff knows exactly what they're going to get out of every single player. The consistency of the performance is so dynamic. And then depending on who they're playing, sometimes one guy's going to bubble up because he has a better matchup. The next week, he's playing against a pretty good player. But this guy over here, he's got a fish. He'll bubble up and make some plays. So I think that's the thing, is that if the coaches can have expectations on a week-to-week basis that they know exactly what their players are going to give them, and they have so many guys, Hendrickson and Hubbard, for example, on the edge. They exhaust their effort every single snap. And when you have that's exactly what you're looking for. It's tough when you're a coach and you have a player that will turn it on and make some plays and then just kind of shut it down and put it in neutral and just survive for 2 or 3 series. And I think the Bengals are cut from the cloth of a group of guys that hustle and want to play well for each other. Multiple guys run to the football, all those kind of things. I think they care about each other. I think they never want to put a teammate out there in space one-on-one. They always want to have a bunch of bodies around the football. All those kind of things are going to be big.
With Ben Roethlisberger, you mentioned he was dealing with that pec injury earlier in the week. He's going to go today. Is there anything really to read into that, Lap? I mean, I know we've seen Big Ben play, handful of games with injuries, some more severe than kind of seems like what he's been dealing with this week.
Yeah, I agree with you, Marissa. I think here in Pittsburgh, people I talk to in Pittsburgh and players that I talk to and former players that I talk to that have all been teammates of Ben say Ben's a diva. Ben wants to be John Wayne. Whenever Ben he's been on the injury report more than any other player in the NFL in his time frame with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's always on the injury report. But then, like John Wayne, he comes to the rescue and leads the team to a big victory. He just feeds off of that. I'd be surprised if this pectoral injury. Now, if we're right pectoral and you're throwing with that right arm, it's a little bit of a difference. But even with the left one, when you're turning and following through, depending on the severity of it, could be a little bit of a factor. Again, that's why I think they're going to they haven't run the football well, Marissa, for the last seasons. And then the first 2 games this year, they're amongst the bottom feeders in the league in terms of running the ball again. But if their quarterback is indeed hampered, they want to take some pressure off him by being able to run the football. But knowing Big Ben and knowing his mindset, he'll feed off the fact that everybody's going to be like, oh, yeah, boy, Ben's hurt. Oh, wow, look at Ben. Oh, even though Ben's injured, well, look at Ben make these plays. He feeds off that stuff.
He certainly does. Well, this is the 104th meeting between the Bengals and the Steelers this afternoon. One of the keys I'm going to be looking for at lap 2 is just protecting the football. No turnovers. You can't have turnovers like they did last week in a big rivalry game like this one. Also going to be looking at the defensive line and just how much pressure, how can they affect that Steelers O-line. Really have liked what I've seen so far from that starting unit on the defensive line. What's 1 or 2 key matchups you're going to be keeping an eye on this afternoon?
I like what you just talked about, the Bengals defensive line. They've closed the gap on Pittsburgh's front, particularly now with Watt out of the game with the injuries. Mm-hmm. Who's going to take over on that from that defensive front 7 perspective? I think the Bengals are in position to do that. We talked about the Bengals rookie, getting a start, 2nd-round pick in the draft. The Steelers have a center. It was the 3rd-round pick in this past draft. Their left tackle, Moore, is a 4th-round pick in this draft. They have 2 rookies, center and left tackle. Their left guard has 7 NFL starts. So the 2 rookies have 2 apiece. That's 11 NFL starts. Only 11 games started amongst the center, left guard, left tackle. Defensive line has to feed off of that. They have to get after that side of scrimmage. That they have to change up the looks. They have to dominate in different ways. They have to give those young bucks, have their heads spinning a little bit. We're worried about our rookie. How's our rookie going to be able to go out and operate his first NFL start? And it's a legitimate concern. It's on the road in Pittsburgh. The crowd's going to be in full throat, everything that goes along with it. But there's a Bengals defensive line that can take advantage of the same type of thing with the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive front that is in transition. They're rebuilding that offensive line for sure.
Absolutely. Well, it's a big divisional matchup coming up from Heinz Field. Winner today will move into first place in the AFC North. For Dave Lapham, I'm Marissa Contapelli. Thank you for tuning in to our TriHealth pregame live stream. Kickoff from Heinz Field in Pittsburgh is coming up just after 1 p.m. You can listen in to Dave and Dan Horde on the Bengals Radio Network or watch along on CBS.